we go. Hey, it's Bill Gross, the LA Probate expert, and we are constantly looking to bring professionals in our business that we can network with and grow our business. In addition to my colleague today, Paul Cook. Say hi, Paul.
Hi.
Excited to bring a wealth management expert from the Peach State, from Georgia, Jordan Slingo. Jordan, how you doing?
Doing well today, Bill. It's good to be on here with you.
Great. And so, Jordan, give us a little background. Where'd you grow up, and then how'd you get into your current position in wealth management?
Yeah, so that's a kind of interesting story. Grew up in the Atlanta area, and then the majority of my life in Florida, split between Daytona Beach and Jacksonville. Went to school for finance and expected to spend my whole career as a financial analyst. Did that for about 9 years down in the Jacksonville area for a mutual fund management company, and enjoyed it, but found that there was something missing. And that something was being able to see the impact that my work was having on people's lives. So towards the end of that 9-year stint, I started developing an interest in personal financial planning. And my wife's family is all from the Athens, Georgia area. So started looking at opportunities to transition up there, and Elwood and Getz was the top result that came up every way I was searching for firms that fit the fee-only fiduciary financial planning model that I was looking for. And that's basically just, advisor speak for doing things the right way with the client's best interest in mind, no commissions, no, salesy focus. So everywhere I searched, the same firm kept popping up at the top of the list. So I figured I need to reach out to them and see what's going on there.
Or maybe you find out who the marketing department is, who got the good Google search results. So before you think about popping up. So let's talk a little bit.
No one doing marketing at that point. It just kind of organically showed up. So 2.5 years later, here we are.
So you describe a little bit about what the fiduciary model is, which I think, if I was to summarize, is you have a fee based on the assets and the results that you create for your client, as opposed to commissions on each individual transaction. And the problem that people have had in the industry has been your colleagues or competitors are more interested in transactions than they are actually building wealth. So how does that translate into activity? If I was a client of yours, how might you handle my assets differently than, say, a traditional commission-based financial planner?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the traditional advisor broker model is, like you said, very transaction oriented, very product oriented. And there's, when you're giving broad financial advice, but you're also selling financial products, there's some inherent conflicts of interest there. And the way that the fee only and fiduciary models differ from that is that, we're getting paid a flat fee regardless of what products we're recommending or when we buy and sell. And so one typically reduces the amount of volume of buying and selling. And we're looking longer term, on the investment side at what's going to help the client meet their goals, not what's going to generate the most commissions for us. On the other side, we're not selling insurance products or annuities or anything like that, although we do advise on those. We can provide recommendations, but because we're not receiving commissions on those products, the client can feel good that we're recommending something that's truly in their best interest and only recommending it when they truly need it. So that was part of what drew me to that model, was not having the pressure to recommend certain products because they benefited me, but only recommending what's in the client's best interest.
What's the most common entry point for you for a new client? Is it somebody who inherits money? Is it somebody who maybe stepped up their career and got a big bonus or some stock options? What's the most common scenario that you find somebody comes to you and says, help, I got a bunch of money, I don't know what to do with it?
Yeah, it's a broad mix. We definitely have a number of clients who come to us after a major life event like an inheritance or something along those lines. Maybe they've always managed their own finances, but now you're looking at a much bigger dollar amount. They're thinking, okay, I'm a little out of my depth here. I need some professional help with this. There are some clients who come to us pretty early in their careers just saying, hey, I don't have a lot yet, but I know that I need help to get on headed in the right direction. And in some cases, we're pretty selective about the profile and personality fit element of who we want to work with. And so even if they're not necessarily a great fit for us as a long-term client, we want to help point them in the right direction, give them some advice. So we do a lot of pro bono work as well.
Mm.
But yeah, there's a broad mix of reasons that people come to us, but the majority of the people who do come to us find out about us from friends and family who are already clients. Most of our business is referral based, so that's kind of exciting, just knowing that the clients that we are working with like us enough and are excited about us enough to tell their friends and family.
I know that I get clients. I mean, I wish I had more, but I get clients who regularly will say they're coming into a big chunk of money. Grandma passed, left the house, and they have a life-changing chunk of cash, and they'll say to me that they're thinking about keeping the house as a rental. And I'll walk them through why that house isn't suitable as a rental. That they have to put cash into it or whatever the situation is. If it's not, if it is, it's different. But 99% of the time, grandma was not living in a house that's suitable for rental. And now they're a chunk of cash, and they'll say, "Well, I want to invest in real estate." And I know I work with investors, and I say to them, "That's a process. Like there's a lot of education involved. So what do I do with the money?" And if I say, "Well, put in the stock market," they're like, "Why would I do that?" Like it's changed in my lifetime to where I won't say it's a negative connotation, but the sense is they're giving up control. They have no real predictability. How do you advise clients that they're investing in financial assets for the purpose of building wealth and getting income? How do you advise them that that's an alternative for people who aren't so inclined initially? Like they weren't lifetime savers, they weren't lifetime investors, so they don't necessarily believe in that product right away. How do you help them make that decision?
Yeah, that's also a great question. There's a lot of different mental models or psychological approaches to educating a client who comes in with either without any experience investing in the stock market or who's been burned in the stock market in the past. And there are a lot of people who in 2008, 2009, and even 2 years ago, 2020, had significant losses. And they're like, "I'm done. I don't want anything to do with that anymore." And so I think, in addition to just general education about, okay, what are the different risk levels of different asset classes, real estate, bonds, stocks, and even alternative asset classes. So there's some education that's involved there. But I think another thing that we've found is really helpful is putting that level of risk in the context of what they're actually trying to achieve with that money. So if you're a 55, 60-year-old who's approaching retirement in 5 to 10 years and doesn't want to risk losing 30, 40% of their money, then that's a whole different ballgame than a 25-year-old who's just starting out, with a very small dollar amount. The amount of risk that you can take and that psychologically you can tolerate is much different. So we always emphasize being broadly diversified. We're never going to recommend being 100% in the stock market. And even for younger clients, we want to have the flexibility to move back and forth between asset classes to take advantage of the different risk levels and the different return levels. So diversification is very important, and real estate is also an important part of that. I mean, we have a significant chunk of most of our clients' money in some form of real estate, whether that's a real estate investment trust or they own a property that we can treat the same way. So having your money split between different types of investments that are going to behave differently in different market environments is one way to reduce your overall risk level.
And what are the investments that will do great in a down market like right now? Just so I know.
Yeah, pretty much the only things that they're doing great this year are I bonds that are pegged to inflation, and anything related to oil, which would not have been what we expected going into the year. Everything else pretty much is down.
Yeah, and that's a tough investment in oil when you know that there's a whole group of people who would like to destroy your industry,
Yeah,
whether right or wrong. And
right.
I'm not here to get into the politics of it, but the reality is there are people who would love to wish away that industry. Well, how can you invest in something
Mhm.
where investments, pipelines are 10, 20-year projects,
Right.
refineries and such.
Yeah.
So, my son-in-law is, I think I mentioned, in a wealth management firm. He's a CPA and runs the tax department.
Mhm.
One of the things I really admire about what his father did, his father was an accountant who did some financial planning, and from an early age got him interested in stocks. He invested some gifts over time, and it grew and it grew. But more importantly, he developed a knowledge and appreciation and a sense of the value of saving money over time. What's there? Do you have any particular appropriate ways that you would recommend? If somebody said, "I'd like to get my kids started," where do I start them? How do I get them interested? What is there a particular service or company that you recommend, or do you guys handle that yourself with the kids' accounts with a couple $100 or $1,000 to get started? How do you
Yeah.
handle that?
Yeah. So for our clients who have kids who are either just starting out in their careers or just wanting to, provide some financial literacy education, we do provide that for them and help their kids get started on their own, financial journey. For just, general public, I think there's a couple of larger companies that are great to start out with. We work pretty heavily with Charles Schwab and Fidelity. Those are, you can open up an account in 5 minutes, and they've got a lot of great educational resources there. There's also a number of free resources that touch on financial literacy. Khan Academy is a great crowdsourced or open source resource. And there's a number of others out there. There's also a lot of bad financial education,
Right,
financial
right.
resources out there. I've seen personally some really, really bad advice on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. Anybody who seems to be making money hand over fist, which was pretty common last year,
Right.
is probably worth staying away from. So if
Yeah.
they say it's easy and there's no downside, they're probably fooling themselves or fooling you.
Yeah. If it's easy, there's no downside. There's probably a big downside.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And, on a small level, I'm a real estate broker, and there's different vendors we work with, one being a transaction coordinator. And I had a great year last year. And so I gave her 2 years ago, and I gave her some stock in the company that I'm with. We have to be NASDAQ traded EXP under the ticker sign EXPI. So I gave her like $50 worth of stock. Back then it was trading at $2 a share.
Mhm.
And it later went up to like 40 and then split. And now it's really trading about, split adjusted $20 a share, but it went up 10 times. So that $50 gift became like a $500 value. I remember she called me, was so like in tears on the phone, so appreciative.
Yeah,
And I think more important though than the gift is hopefully getting people started about financial literacy. It's
right.
something that I've been reading a lot of Robert Kiyosaki on the subject, that for some reason it's almost like we purposely don't teach financial literacy and create a dependent class, and people who learn this process early do well. Do you
Yeah,
feel like you're in the industry? Does that kind of push you to be more disciplined on your own personal finances and your own wealth creation?
absolutely. And I completely agree that there is a huge lack of financial literacy education in general, whether that's through the school system or even at the college level. I personally would love to see a mandatory, high school class on basics of finance, or at
Yeah,
least a college elective class that's required. And as a firm, we have a pretty close tie with University of Georgia, and several of our founding members are professors part time at UGA. So we actually do a lot of partnership in the community with UGA to further financial literacy, financial education, volunteer-based tax preparation,
that's
uh,
great.
and that's it is a great need in the community.
Mm.
So I love seeing that be a common interest.
Yeah. You mentioned University of Georgia. I think you guys have a football team, don't you?
We do have a football team, national
They're
champion.
they're okay.
Baby. Yeah,
Yeah.
undefeated this season so far.
Yeah. So far, I've had a good season, and
Yep,
with Alabama losing, I guess it's looking better already, right?
that helps a little. Yeah.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about somebody who's looking to get into the financial, industry, whether it be as a fiduciary or as whatever is a broad area. What would you recommend them, to get started? Where would you say, where would you direct somebody who says, "I'm interested in, learning how to make more money, as well as to make it myself"?
Mhm.
What kind of career path would you recommend somebody to go on to learn that process?
Yeah. So the traditional route would be in an actual financial planning program, major program, but and UGA has a very strong program. I am not a UGA graduate, but I'm a very proud Dogs fan. So uh,
I think you have to be.
you
I think
definitely do to live in Athens.
I
Yeah,
think you have to. Yeah, I
It
think it's the
helps. Yeah.
law. I think it's a municipal
yeah,
code actually that you can't not root for them.
right.
Well, you can't own a home in Athens and not be a dog fan. Yeah.
That's very true.
That would be in code. Yeah.
And for the
Yeah,
rest of America, it's the University of Georgia Bulldogs, but they go by dogs,
yeah,
DAWGS.
yeah.
Um,
So, and despite moving from Florida and spending most of my time there, I have no love for the Gators. So that was a pretty easy transition.
whoa, 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 whoa! As a former Floridian and a Gator
Uh-huh,
fan, whoa, whoa, whoa! Where's the hate
yeah.
on the Gators for?
Uh,
So, look,
so,
I've enjoyed our time. Paul, do you have any? I'm sure you have questions for Jordan. Any that you want to
Mhm.
put on national internet distribution?
Sure. Yeah. So Jordan, knowing that most of the people that are going to be looking at this are either realtors and they're involved or looking at being involved in probate to some extent,
yeah.
uh, how important is it for them to have someone on their team like you that they can go to and send some of these clients to? How big
Mhm.
of a deal is that, and what does that look
Yeah.
like?
I would say I might be a little biased here being in the financial advice part of the industry, but I think it's a very big deal. I mean, if you don't have a cohesive plan for what to do with the assets that you're inheriting or helping, process through as an executor, your tax situation has a huge impact on what's optimal to do with those assets. Your goals, if you inherit this big chunk of money, but you don't have a great idea what you're personally trying to accomplish down the road, then you can end up not using or reinvesting those assets in a way that is optimal for you. So I think having a team of professionals, a state attorney, a realtor, financial planner, a tax accountant, uh, makes a huge difference when it comes to treating those assets in a way that is going to help you with what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I wanted Jordan to be exposed like this is because, first of all, he's on our team. I love him. He's my son-in-law, but he's also, as you could tell, he's brilliant. He knows what he's talking about, and he really does have a care for people, and that overrides and being the fiduciary that he is, that that takes the place of um, him looking for profits. He doesn't have to struggle with that. That's why he's where he is. And I love that for my clients to be able to bring to someone like Jordan who can help them and coach them through. And his main concern is for their well-being, is for their betterment. So
Well,
I appreciate that and love you too.
yeah.
well, Jordan, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and talk about financial planning or wealth management or had particular questions, I know you're on the Elwood Gates website, and then Gates is GOETZ.com.
Yeah,
There's your handsome face and a picture and such. And I guess is that the best phone number to call you at and best
it
email
sure
address?
is. Yep. So people are more than welcome to call. That's just our office line. Somebody can connect you with me, and I try to respond to emails same or within one business day. So glad to help if anyone needs assistance.
Fantastic. Well, Jordan, I've enjoyed meeting you today and sharing with you about financial planning. I think it's an important topic. I'm big on financial literacy, and I also think you have to find your flavor in the person you feel comfortable with. And I know, Paul and I get along real well. He speaks real highly of you, and I think as well, anybody who's interested should at least call you and talk to you and see if they're a good fit for you, right?
Absolutely.
Well, great. Well, thanks so much for being on call today.
Yeah, great to meet you too, and appreciate the kind words and the opportunity to talk with you.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Paul, as always.
Yep.